Hello, everyone. My name is Victor. I am a senior solutions engineer here at Okta. And I wanted to thank the team at IAM Tech Day, especially Alfredo, for having me here today to talk about securing the hybrid workforce, establishing trust in a zero trust world. Okay, so let's get started here today. This keynote, this is going to be a brief 10-minute presentation. So let me click here on the next slide. So I wanted to start my presentation with a small or quick buzzword bingo. So as we know, there's a ton of buzzwords today that we've seen, out there in the market. So when we see, for instance, things and threats like phishing, DNS attack, zero trust, malware, ransomware, there are a ton, right, of threats out there. So on top of that, we get, let's say, solutions that are scalable, next generation, that builds context or that are contextual. We have machine learning, artificial intelligence, right? Things of that nature to solve for a lot of like attacks, and things like that today. On top of that, we have and we need to adopt to regulations, right? And compliance as well. So there are a ton of regulations and compliance requirements that we need to, let's say apply, right, to our systems. So with that, we end up with the most common buzzwords. But really, let's see, what are the things that businesses are doing today to really improve their security posture. Okay, so in today's world, in today's ecosystems, technology teams, they're now facing the challenge, a new challenge, which is having users working in a hybrid mode. They're not just working from an office; they're now going to work from home, remotely from anywhere. And we know, for instance, let's say 82% actually, there is this number, 82% of decision makers in companies, they are, they know and they want users to actually work at least in a partial way, in a hybrid mode, right? And 47% of those decision makers actually approve of having people working fully remote. Okay, so that obviously brings new challenges, and especially when shifting the digital perimeter, right, from the on-premise and office protection to now being, or having users working from anywhere. So let's look at some numbers here. Let's say, for instance, in the identity gaps that we have identified right now, there are a few here, right? And that means that 89% of web breaches have been caused by credential abuse, right? So a ton of passwords that we see out there, each of you, I'm sure, have not just, a lot of passwords or places or websites that you need to log in with a password, but also you reuse passwords, right? So, in a lot of those cases, if one password is compromised, then users may gain access to different systems of yours because the password is the same. Now, 61% of all breaches involved stolen passwords or stolen credentials, right, up to this point, and this is again based out of a Verizon report. And ultimately, phishing is present in 36% of breaches, right? So these actually went up from the 2021, which was 25%. So let's think about this for a second. What does this mean? So phishing, as you may all know, when it comes to phishing, people gets an email, right? They click on a link and they type a password, or they provide a credential, and nowadays we've seen that more and more, right, lately. Now, what does the zero trust adoption means today, right? So, and really, it's here to stay, right? When it comes to zero trust, it's not just a buzzword anymore. Now, does your organization have identity or have defined zero trust security initiatives today, or are you planning to start it in next 12 to 18 months? Um, Okta has this report, and I'll be happy to share later, where 90% of respondents, they actually said they have or plan a zero trust initiative within the next 12 or 18 months, right? These actually went up from 41% in 2020, right? So, think about this. So, what is your strategy around zero trust? Do you have any, concerns, any plans, right, and things like that? Um, so identity is a new perimeter, right? This is from one of our customers, Mid South Bank, in the U.S. So identity is a new perimeter. We're trying to protect, right? We're going to make sure that users prove who they say they are in an immutable way, so that we can at least trust that session, right? So um, Okta has been able to provide a functionality that protects not just the workforce, let's say credentials, but also systems. Let's say any portal now with the Auth0 platform. We can also protect, let's say consumer applications and of course credentials. Okay. Now, this is what identity centered architecture looks like. If you see right here, we see a huge ecosystem when it comes to zero trust. We see CASB platforms. We see mobile device management platforms. We see, for instance, what is it? Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, SaaS applications, right? So this is what the ecosystem looks like today. Now, these all meet in the middle, in the center, with the identity being the centric, right, of this architecture, where now the identity is able to, create context, evaluate access, apply, let's say, passwordless authentication, read biometrics, and apply multiple policies based on who the user is, and making sure the user is who they say they are. This is a maturity curve for identity first, or identity centric architecture. So from the left hand side, we see stage zero, where we have a fragmented identity, maybe directories on premise, no cloud integration, passwords everywhere, right? So that's base one, zero, stage one. Stage two, or actually stage zero, that was stage one. Then we have single sign-on across multiple employees, contractors, partners. Modern multi-factor authentication is applied, and then unified policies across all cloud and on-premise applications. So everything static, it's configured, and pretty much it's all or nothing, right? Now, stage two is more of the contextual side of things, right? We now get context-based access policies, multi-factor deployed based on users or based on groups, right? We have automated provisioning and so on and so forth. And then lastly, we have an adaptive workforce on stage three, where now we get risk-based access policies, continuous adaptive authentication and authorization, passwordless access, and identity-focused security orchestration and automation. Okay, so if you think about it, you need to see where you're at, and then keep your eye forward to really what the stage three would be. Lastly is the modern identity in control plane for all the identities and all resources. So when it comes to identity, or who the user is, what device they're using, then the context, like where they're connecting from, the network, things of that nature. Then really the resources, which is what is the user trying to access to, and the analytics and orchestration. So that all it's centered in the identity, right, engine, right, which is the axis here where we see risk score, policies, and authorization engine. Now, these everything is found in a single vision, right, which is the access management, the identity governance, and the privilege access. So ideally, you would have a solution, a single solution that take care of all of this. All right. The next steps is please go to octave.com, go to solutions, and adopt the zero trust security model. You'll see these resources to help you go to that stage 3 that we just checked. Thank you. That was Okta. This is Victor. Thank you so much for watching.